Let me ask you something simple. When you're walking alone at night and hear a sound behind you, does your mind calmly assess the odds, or does it instantly imagine danger? A shadow becomes a threat. A possibility becomes a certainty. And just like that, you're worried. But what happened? Nothing actually happened. This is the first truth about worry. It's not the reality that causes your suffering, it's your interpretation of the unknown. You worry too much because your mind has learned to confuse possibility with probability. The moment something can go wrong, you begin to feel as if it will go wrong. And this subtle confusion, this shift from maybe to must, is what turns a passing thought into a chronic fear. This happens because the brain is hardwired for survival, not peace. Thousands of years ago, being overly cautious could keep you alive. The rustling in the bushes might have been wind or a predator. Those who assumed the worst had a better chance of surviving. But what was useful for physical survival in the wild has become toxic in modern life. You're not being chased by lions anymore. You're dealing with deadlines, relationships, money, self-worth. The danger isn't out there. It's inside your thoughts. So your mind continues to scan for danger like a radar searching for threats that aren't even there. You start to believe that if something could happen, an accident, rejection, failure, then you must prepare for it. You must dwell on it. You must rehearse the pain in advance. But ask yourself, does worrying about something make it less likely to happen? Does it prepare you? Or does it paralyze you? The truth is, most of what you worry about never actually happens. And when something does go wrong, it's rarely as bad as you imagined. The mind overestimates danger and underestimates your ability to handle it. This is the psychological root of worry, the belief that you are weaker than your problems, that the future holds threats you cannot survive. But here's where the shift begins. Instead of constantly asking, what if this goes wrong? Start asking, what if I'm stronger than I think? Because the real issue isn't uncertainty. It's your relationship with uncertainty. Possibility will always exist. You cannot eliminate it. But you can learn to stop feeding it with your energy and attention. Philosophically, this is where awareness becomes your first tool. When you become conscious of this mental pattern, when you catch yourself spiraling from maybe to definitely, you create a space. And in that space, choice is born. You no longer have to follow the momentum of fear. You can observe it, question it, and let it pass without building a story around it. It's not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming free from the compulsion to believe every fear your mind offers. Fear is information, not instruction. Just because your brain generates a thought doesn't mean you must obey it. This is inner discipline, not suppressing your thoughts, but refusing to worship them. Training your mind to distinguish between what's merely possible and what's genuinely probable is like learning to see clearly after years of blurred vision. You realize most of your suffering wasn't caused by life, but by your resistance to imagined versions of life. You wake up to the present. And in the present, almost nothing is wrong. The next time your heart starts racing, not because something is wrong, but because something might go wrong, pause. Ask yourself, is this real right now? Or is this my mind rehearsing pain? That one question can change everything, because the key to inner peace is not in eliminating uncertainty. It's in mastering how you respond to it. And once you learn to stop mistaking shadows for monsters, you'll discover that peace was never missing. It was only buried beneath all the things that never even happened. Most people don't realize this, but worry is not just about fear, it's about time. You worry too much because your attention has been hijacked by a future that doesn't exist yet. Your body is here, but your mind is somewhere else. Solving problems that haven't occurred, chasing outcomes that aren't guaranteed, trying to secure a tomorrow that you have no control over. And in doing so, you miss the only place where life ever truly happens, the present moment. The modern mind is obsessed with the future. We are conditioned to believe that peace will come after. After success, after we fix everything, after we reach the next level. This belief creates an invisible tension. A constant sense that you're not there yet, that you're incomplete behind, or late for a life that's always a few steps ahead of you. This is the breeding ground of anxiety, not because the future is dangerous, but because your mind keeps projecting you into it and convincing you that you're not ready. What you're really doing is living in anticipation of failure, anticipation of disappointment, anticipation of things falling apart. And anticipation creates a kind of emotional debt. You suffer now for problems that might never arrive. You rehearse stress in your body as if that rehearsal will somehow protect you from pain, but it doesn't. It only ensures you suffer twice, once in imagination and once, maybe, in reality. Now ask yourself how many of your problems are happening right now, not next week, not tomorrow. Right now, in this exact moment, you'll often find the answer is none. And yet your heart is racing, your muscles are tense, you can't sleep. Why? Because your mind has made a home in a time that hasn't happened yet. But here's what's deeper. We live in the future because we don't trust the present. The present moment feels too quiet, too uncertain. It doesn't offer guarantees, it just is. And that simplicity, if you're not used to it, can be terrifying. So we rush away from the present, looking for safety in preparation, in analysis, in overthinking. But worry doesn't prepare you for the future. It disconnects you from the only place you can act, choose, breathe, and live. Philosophically, this obsession with the future reflects a lack of inner stillness, because stillness is not passive, it's powerful. It allows you to remain grounded even when the unknown calls your name. And this is where discipline matters. Not the kind of discipline that makes you rigid or robotic, but the kind that trains your awareness. So when your mind starts to wander off, when it starts to create stories about what could go wrong, you gently bring it back to breath, back to body, back to now. This doesn't mean you stop planning or setting goals. It means you stop sacrificing presence for the illusion of control. The future will arrive, but it will arrive as the present. If you're not practicing presence now, you won't suddenly become present later. You'll just continue chasing peace in the next moment, then the next, until life has passed you by. The ancient wisdom is simple. The mind that lives in the future will always be restless. The mind that returns to the present begins to see clearly, and clarity is the antidote to worry. Not blind optimism, not forced positivity, just clarity, seeing things as they are without the noise of what if. So the next time you feel that rising tension, that restless loop of what will happen, pause. Ask yourself, am I here or have I wandered away? Because wherever your mind goes, your life follows. And once you learn to stay where your feet are, you'll realize that peace was never a destination. It was a choice you had in every moment. You just weren't there to make it. There's a quiet belief hiding beneath most of our worries, and it's this: as though if I can control everything, I will be safe. We try to control our schedules, control people's opinions, control outcomes, even control emotions that haven't yet risen within us. Why? Because uncertainty feels like chaos, and the mind doesn't like chaos. It prefers order, even if that order is an illusion. This desire for control is deeply rooted. From an evolutionary perspective, control meant survival. The more control you had over your environment, the safer you were. But in modern life, the environment isn't lions or wild storms. It's your boss's mood, your partner's reactions, your child's future, or the trajectory of your own life. And none of these things can be completely controlled. So what happens? The more you try to grip life tightly, the more it slips through your fingers. The tighter your grip, the more fragile your peace becomes. A single unexpected change, a comment, a delay, a mistake, and the system collapses. That collapse is what you call anxiety. Not because life is attacking you, but because life isn't behaving the way you thought it should. And that word, should, is the language of control. They should understand me. I should have done better. Things should go my way. Every time you use it, you set yourself up for internal conflict, because reality doesn't care about your script. Life unfolds on its own terms, and when your expectations clash with what it is, you experience suffering. But here's something we rarely reflect on: control is not the same as strength. Control is rooted in fear. Strength is rooted in flexibility. A strong mind doesn't need to control everything. It knows how to adapt. It knows how to stay centered when plans fall apart. It knows that true stability doesn't come from controlling the storm, but from learning how to stand in the storm without losing your balance. This is why people who appear calm aren't always the ones with perfect lives. They're the ones who've stopped fighting life and started flowing with it. They've accepted that they can't predict every outcome, and they've made peace with that. This doesn't mean they're passive. It means they're wise They act where they have influence and surrender where they don't. Philosophically, this surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of intelligence. To let go of what you cannot hold is not giving up, it's waking up. It's the shift from resistance to awareness, from fear to presence. And this awareness creates space. Space to choose your response instead of reacting blindly out of panic. Look at nature. The tree bends with the wind, it doesn't break. The river doesn't resist the rocks in its path, it flows around them. This is not a metaphor, it's a reminder. Life is movement, life is change, and peace belongs not to those who control the movement, but to those who move with it. The reason you worry too much is not because your life is out of control. It's because you've built your peace on the condition that things must stay in control. But control is fragile. It breaks. It changes. And when it does, if your peace depends on it, you break too. So start small. Let go where you have no power. Don't fight every uncertainty. Don't chase perfect outcomes. Do your part with intention, but release the rest. Because peace is not what happens when everything is certain. Peace is what you find when you realize you don't need certainty to be okay. And once you no longer demand control over everything, you'll discover something deeper than control. Trust. Not blind trust in the world, but trust in your ability to meet life as it comes. And that trust is where real freedom begins. One of the most overlooked reasons you worry too much is because you believe everything your mind says. Every thought becomes your identity. Every fear becomes a fact. You don't just think anxious thoughts, you become the one who is anxious. And once that identification takes root, you stop questioning the mind's voice. You start living in it. But here's the truth: you are not your thoughts. Thoughts arise in the mind like clouds in the sky. Some are heavy and dark. Some pass quickly. Some repeat themselves over and over again. But none of them as are you. You are the awareness that sees them come and go. And this realization, if you sit with it deeply, is where freedom begins. When you attach your identity to every thought, you lose perspective. A passing doubt turns into a personal failure. A fleeting fear becomes your destiny. You might think, what if I fail? And suddenly your entire system reacts, heart racing, muscles tensing, breath shortening. Not because failure has occurred, but because you believe that thought without any distance. You accepted it as truth. This is where philosophy and psychology meet. The ancient teachings, from Stoicism to Zen, remind us that the mind is a tool, not a master. It's designed to generate ideas, scan for threats, solve problems. But if you confuse the mind with the self, you become its prisoner. And a mind left unchecked does not serve peace. It serves survival, fear, and control. Now think of how often you say, I'm anxious, or I'm worried. Notice how the language fuses you with the emotion. Instead of saying, I'm experiencing worry, you are the worry. That subtle shift makes all the difference. When you observe a thought instead of becoming it, you open space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you reclaim your power. But this detachment doesn't mean suppression. It doesn't mean pretending you don't feel what you feel. It means seeing thoughts and emotions, vast as they are, without adding a false identity to them. You might feel fear, but you are not fear. You might have a worried mind, but you are not the worry itself. This distinction sounds simple, but it is profound. It's the difference between drowning in the ocean and realizing you are the sky above it. To practice this, begin with awareness. When a worrying thought arises, don't resist it. Just see it. Label it. This is a thought. Watch it. Ask, is this helpful? Is this real? Is this mine to act on, or just a habit of the mind? Often, the simple act of witnessing will dissolve its hold on you, because thoughts only gain power when they go unnoticed. There's a quote often attributed to a Zen teaching: let your thoughts come and go. Just don't serve them tea. You don't have to fight your mind. You don't have to silence it. You simply have to stop feeding it your attention when it doesn't serve you. That's not avoidance. It's wisdom. And the more you practice this inner clarity, the more you realize how much of your life has been shaped by unquestioned thoughts. Thoughts about your worth, about your past, about your future, about what others think of you. None of them are ultimate truths. They are interpretations, stories, and stories can be rewritten. When you stop identifying with the noise of the mind, you uncover something quieter beneath it. A stillness, a presence, a deeper self that doesn't react, doesn't panic, doesn't worry. It just observes. It just is. That's the part of you that doesn't come and go. That's the part of you that's free. So the next time a fearful thought grabs you by the throat, don't fight it and don't follow it. Just recognize it. And remember, that you are the calm the storm. Yes, worry doesn't arise in a vacuum. It arises in a restless mind, one that has forgotten how to be still. If you examine your life closely, you'll see it's not just the external noise that overwhelms you. It's the internal chatter, the constant commentary, the voice that never sleeps, always thinking, predicting, analyzing, anticipating. And when the mind is never still, worry becomes its default rhythm. Stillness is not just a spiritual concept. It's a psychological necessity. Think of your mind like a pool of water. When it's calm, you can see clearly. But when it's disturbed, even slightly, everything becomes distorted. You can't trust what you see. Worry is what happens when your inner waters are always rippling. Every thought feels urgent. Every emotion feels like a crisis. There is no space between what happens and how you react. We've been conditioned to believe that stillness is laziness, that silence is unproductive, that rest is a weakness. So we fill our days and our minds with more information, more stimulation, more noise. But in doing so, we leave no room for presence. And presence is where clarity lives. Without it, you're not responding to life. You're reacting to your own mental projections. This is where the discipline of stillness becomes vital. Because stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the mastery of movement. It's the ability to pause, not out of hesitation, but out of awareness. It's the ability to hear your thoughts without being dragged by them. It's the ability to stay rooted when life tries to shake you. Now, it's easy to misunderstand this. Some people think stillness means shutting everything out, running away, isolating yourself. That's not stillness. That's escape. True stillness doesn't mean avoiding life. It means being so deeply grounded in your own center that the chaos outside no longer controls your inner state. One reason so many people worry constantly is because they've never cultivated this inner space. They go from one task to the next, one notification to the next, one worry to the next, never pausing to ask, what is actually happening inside me right now? And without that pause, without that moment of introspection, the mind becomes like an engine that never cools. It overheats. It burns out. And that burnout becomes anxiety. But the good news is stillness can be trained through simple acts, through breath, through observation, through presence. You don't need to disappear into a cave or sit for hours in silence. You only need to remember how to stop, just for a moment, and come back to yourself. One conscious breath can reset the nervous system. One honest observation, I am spiraling right now, can break the cycle. One still moment can remind you that not everything demands your reaction. Philosophically, this return to stillness is a return to your original nature. Before the world shaped your identity, before fear clouded your judgment, before you became addicted to speed and stimulation, you were still, and in that stillness you were enough. You didn't need to prove anything, fix anything, or anticipate anything. You simply existed, fully, peacefully. That is not some mystical state reserved for monks and sages. It's your birthright, but reclaiming it takes effort. The kind of effort that looks like non-doing, like stepping back from the chaos instead of stepping deeper into it, like choosing presence over panic, like becoming the eye of the storm instead of the storm itself. So if your mind feels noisy, if your chest feels tight, if your thoughts won't stop racing, don't add more noise to solve it. Don't fight your way out. Breathe, return, listen. Because when you cultivate inner stillness, you stop reacting to life and start meeting life. And in that meeting, there is no worry, only clarity, only presence, only peace. The stiller your mind, the stronger your presence. And in presence, worry has no place to live. Worry is rarely just about the surface problem. It's often a mask for something deeper, something more uncomfortable that you haven't allowed yourself to face. When you really look closely, you'll begin to see that much of your worrying is not about solutions, but about avoidance. You use worry as a distraction, a mental noise that drowns out the silence where the real discomfort lies. It might sound strange, but worry can be a form of control. It gives you something to do. You pace, you overthink, you rehearse every worst case scenario. It feels like action, but it's not action. It's escape. You're not moving forward. You're running in circles around an emotion you don't want to feel. What is it that you're avoiding? Often it's fear, not the loud,